All right, so I've spoken a lot about this idea of ROI messaging, right? This is the most common thing that we typically see. This is like, hey, we do X, Y, and Z. We think you could benefit from X, Y, and Z. It's very self-serving. I mean, that was the very most like rudimentary version of it. But when I think of ROI, this language should evolve. What you put into your ROI messaging should evolve over time, which is why we think about doing these sequences that's like ROI intensive for like 1 to 2 weeks, then give them a break with some new kind of call to action, meaning like asking them to be a guest on something or participate in an advisory board or whatever. And then you're going back to them with ROI language maybe 8 to 10 weeks later. So they're only going to get ROI language from you like every, maybe like 4 to 6 times a year. But they are still getting other collateral from you that is building brand awareness and familiarity. It's just not about direct selling. But when you are in this mode of like ROI messaging and these direct selling sequences, I think it's really important to equally switch this up. And there's a few things that can go into here, right? There can be a narrative around, we improve top line revenue. This is the most common, top line revenue by X, or improve bottom line margins by Y, which is great, right? Like, I mean, these are going to be like your use cases, providing case studies, analysis, etc. Great. But if you're early on, a lot of this might just be BS. You don't really, you're modeling things out that you don't necessarily know if it's factual or not, right? So the other kinds of ROI messaging to me is like social proof. Social proof is so critical. This is going to be logos. So new customers. This could be things like it could be your investors, pedigree of founders, meaning like if you guys are a bunch of ex-Google engineer. I'm going to show this in the growth playbook stuff, but like you can get really creative with this. Worst case is like if you don't have any of these things to use, is use other kinds of resources or references that people trust in your community, right? So like this could be, management consulting report, like a McKinsey or a Bain did a study on whatever it is that you're solving for, and they're realizing that the trend of the industry is going towards this, right? Use these as resources. Press, right? Like use articles if you're mentioned in Wall Street Journal or like you're in TechCrunch or whatever. Again, worst case, you can pull articles that reference or from these trusted resources that reference the problem that you're solving for, right? But the idea is to get creative, and then this should all also evolve over time. So what you're plugging into the ROI messaging, the logos you should get more new logos. You maybe get different investors. There's a bunch of different things you can plug into this. And this is just kind of like the basics of, giving you like 4 to 6 ideas that you can use for the ROI messaging over the course of a year, right? Because you're swapping out after you're telling them ROI messaging, you're going to be like inviting them to something else. So you can also, at this point too, is like if you started to culminate a lot more content in the ROI, you can also share content, right? So what that would look like is, hey, I know you didn't opt in to become a co-host on a webinar, but we ended up doing that webinar, and this is what we covered, and this person spoke on that topic, and that person might be somebody that they know, or might be somebody that is a thought leader in the space. And you were able to get them because they're used to speaking on things, and they understood the value added in providing that shared content for you. And now you can use this in your ROI language, right? And so it could be something along the lines of, hey, we ended up doing this webinar that you didn't join into or choose to participate in, but just wanted to share it with you here. If you wanted to learn more about us and what we do, feel free to book time with me, right? And that's still going into that sales motion, which to me, that's what ROI messaging is driving into a sales demo. It's driving into that direct sales motion. which is a little bit different than how we structure those webinars, those podcasts, and the product advisory board asks. But yeah, this is like a way that you can get really creative with how to do this and then coming up with new types of ideas for different sequences.